The rain was relentless, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. Barnaby, a 44-year-old architect in Seattle, stared out the window of our supposedly dream home, a home I designed with so much love and anticipation for a future that now felt like a cruel joke. My wife, Rowena, was a successful marketing executive, always impeccably dressed, always radiating an air of confidence that I both admired and increasingly resented. We were the picture of success, the envy of our friends, the couple everyone thought had it all. But beneath the surface of perfect smiles and meticulously planned vacations, a rot had begun to fester. It started subtly, with Rowena working late more often, attending conferences in far-flung cities, and becoming increasingly distant. Our conversations dwindled to logistical arrangements: who was picking up groceries, whose turn it was to walk the dog, reminders about upcoming social events. The intimacy, the spark that had once defined our relationship, had all but vanished. I tried to talk to her to bridge the widening gap, but my attempts were met with vague assurances and dismissive sighs. "I'm just stressed, Barnaby," she'd say, her eyes flitting away from mine. "Work is crazy right now. You know how it is." And I, like a fool, believed her. I wanted to believe her. The alternative was too painful to contemplate. The first crack in the facade appeared a few weeks ago. I was working from home, buried in blueprints for a new high-rise downtown, when Rowena called. "I have to fly to Denver for a last-minute meeting," she said, her voice tight. "I'll be back late tomorrow night." Denver. It was a familiar destination for her business trips. A knot of unease tightened in my stomach, but I pushed it aside. I had no reason to doubt her, right? We were married, we loved each other, we had built a life together. Doubt was a poison, and I refused to let it infect our relationship. But that night, as I lay alone in our king-sized bed, the doubt crept back in, insidious and persistent. I found myself unable to sleep, my mind racing with unanswered questions and unsettling possibilities. I tossed and turned for hours, the silence of the house amplifying my anxieties. Finally, around 3 a.m., I gave up on sleep and wandered downstairs. I decided to catch up on some work, hoping to distract myself from the gnawing feeling that something was terribly wrong. As I sat at my desk, my eyes fell on Rowena's laptop, which she had left open on the kitchen counter. It was unusual for her to leave it out, especially unlocked. Curiosity, or perhaps a subconscious desire to confirm my growing suspicions, overwhelmed me. I hesitated for a moment, my conscience warring with my need to know the truth. Snooping was wrong, I knew that. But what if the truth was even worse? What if Rowena was hiding something that could destroy our marriage? With trembling hands, I opened her laptop and navigated to her email. My heart pounded in my chest as I scanned the inbox, searching for anything that might explain her recent behavior. Most of the emails were work-related: marketing reports, client proposals, meeting schedules. But then a subject line caught my eye. "Thinking of you." The email was from someone named Ignatius. I didn't recognize the name. My hands shaking, I clicked on the email and began to read. The words blurred before my eyes as the truth slammed into me with the force of a physical blow. It was an explicit, deeply intimate message, filled with details that made my stomach churn. Ignatius wrote about their secret rendezvous in Denver, their passionate nights together, their plans for a future that didn't include me. I felt like I was going to be sick. The room spun around me, the walls closing in. I stumbled back from the laptop, gasping for air, my mind reeling from the shock. My wife, my Rowena, the woman I had loved and trusted with all my heart, she was having an affair with someone named Ignatius in Denver, and probably in countless other cities I didn't even know about. The pain was unbearable, a searing agony that ripped through my soul. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and utterly heartbroken. How could she do this to me? How could she lie to me so easily, so convincingly? How could she risk everything we had built together for a fleeting moment of pleasure? I spent the rest of the night in a daze, pacing the house, replaying the email over and over in my mind. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I could barely breathe. The world I had known had shattered into a million pieces, and I didn't know how to put it back together. The next day, Rowena returned from Denver, her face flushed, her eyes bright. She greeted me with a kiss that now felt like a cruel mockery of our love. "How was your trip?" I asked, my voice trembling despite my best efforts to remain calm. "It was fine," she said, shrugging. "Just a lot of meetings. I'm exhausted." "I read your email," I blurted out, unable to contain my anger any longer. The words hung in the air between us, heavy with accusation and pain. Rowena's face paled. Her eyes widened in shock and then narrowed in anger. "What are you talking about?" she demanded, her voice rising. "Ignatius," I said, my voice cold. "Denver. Your secret rendezvous. Don't lie to me, Rowena. I know everything." She stared at me for a long moment, her expression a mixture of fear and defiance. Then with a sigh she seemed to deflate. "Okay," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's true." The confession was like a punch to the gut. I staggered back, reeling from the impact. "How could you?" I asked, my voice choked with emotion. "How could you do this to me, to us?" "I don't know," she said, her eyes filling with tears. "It just happened. I didn't mean for it to go this far, it just happened," I repeated, incredulous. "You didn't mean for it to go this far. You've been lying to me for months, sneaking around behind my back, and you expect me to believe that it just happened." "I'm sorry," she sobbed, her face buried in her hands. "I know I've hurt you. I'm so sorry." But her apology meant nothing to me. It was too late. The trust was broken, the damage was done. I couldn't forgive her. I couldn't forget what she had done. "I want you to leave," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "I want you out of this house. I don't ever want to see you again." Rowena looked up at me, her eyes pleading. "Barnaby, please," she begged. "Don't do this. We can work through this. I promise I'll never see Ignatius again." But my mind was made up. "It's over, Rowena," I said, turning away from her. "Get out." She left that day, taking her clothes, her belongings, and a piece of my heart with her. The house felt empty and cold without her, filled with the ghosts of our past happiness. I spent the next few weeks in a haze of grief and anger, struggling to come to terms with the end of my marriage. I threw myself into my work, designing buildings that were strong and solid, buildings that would last. It was a way of reclaiming control, of creating something beautiful and enduring in the face of so much destruction. One evening, a few months after Rowena left, I received a phone call. It was from a woman named Jacinth. She said she was Ignatius's wife. My first instinct was to hang up. I didn't want to talk to her, to dredge up the pain and anger that I was finally starting to heal from. But something in her voice, a hint of desperation, made me hesitate. "I know this is difficult," she said, "but I need to talk to you. It's about Ignatius and Rowena. We met at a coffee shop downtown." Jacinth was a petite woman with tired eyes and a weary smile. She told me that she had suspected Ignatius of having an affair for months, but she had never been able to prove it. "Until now, I found some emails," she said, her voice trembling. "They were planning to leave us to start a new life together." I felt a surge of anger, not just at Rowena and Ignatius, but at myself for being so blind, so trusting. "I'm sorry," I said. "I had no idea." "It's not your fault," Jacinth said. "They're both manipulative people. They're good at hiding their true nature." As we talked, I realized that Jacinth and I had a lot in common. We had both been betrayed, both been lied to, both been left to pick up the pieces of our shattered lives. We decided to work together to expose Ignatius and Rowena, to make sure they didn't get away with what they had done. Jacinth had access to Ignatius's financial records, and she discovered that he had been embezzling money from his company for years. She turned the information over to the authorities, and Ignatius was arrested and charged with fraud. Rowena, meanwhile, was facing the consequences of her actions as well. Her affair with Ignatius had become public knowledge, and she was fired from her job. Her reputation was ruined, and she was ostracized by her friends and colleagues. I didn't take any pleasure in their downfall. In fact, I felt a pang of sadness for Rowena. I had loved her once, and it hurt to see her life unravel so spectacularly. But I also knew that they deserved what they got. They had betrayed the people who loved them, and they had paid the price. In the end, I found solace in my work, in my friends, and in the knowledge that I had done the right thing. I had survived the betrayal, and I had emerged stronger and wiser. I never spoke to Rowena again. I moved on with my life, building a new home for myself, a home filled with honesty, integrity, and love. And I learned a valuable lesson, that trust is a precious gift, and it should never be taken for granted. My life took an unexpected turn when I reconnected with an old college friend, Hester, at an architecture conference in Chicago. Hester, a landscape architect with a sharp wit and an even sharper eye for design, had always been someone I admired. We spent hours discussing our projects, sharing ideas, and laughing over old memories. It was refreshing to be around someone who understood my passion and appreciated my work. As the conference drew to a close, I found myself reluctant to say goodbye. We exchanged numbers, promising to stay in touch. Back in Seattle, Hester and I began to talk regularly, initially about work-related matters, but soon our conversations drifted into more personal territory. I found myself confiding in her about my past, sharing the pain and betrayal I had experienced with Rowena. Hester listened patiently, offering words of comfort and understanding without judgment. Over time, our friendship deepened, and I realized that I was developing feelings for Hester. She was kind, intelligent, and genuinely cared about me. Unlike Rowena, Hester was honest and straightforward, and I felt like I could trust her completely. I was hesitant to jump into another relationship, fearing that I would be hurt again, but Hester's presence in my life brought me a sense of peace and happiness that I hadn't felt in years. One sunny afternoon, as we strolled along the waterfront in Seattle, I mustered the courage to tell Hester how I felt. To my surprise and delight, she admitted that she had feelings for me too. We shared a tender kiss, and in that moment, I knew that I was ready to open my heart again. Hester and I began dating, and our relationship blossomed quickly. We shared a love for architecture, art, and travel, and we enjoyed exploring the city together, discovering new restaurants, museums, and hidden gems. After a year of dating, I knew that Hester was the one I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. I proposed to her on a mountaintop overlooking the Puget Sound, and she said yes without hesitation. Our wedding was a small, intimate affair, attended by our closest friends and family. As I stood at the altar holding Hester's hand, I couldn't help but smile. I had found love again, and this time it felt real and true. I learned that betrayal, while deeply painful, doesn't have to define your life. It can be a catalyst for growth, a chance to rebuild and create a future filled with genuine connection and happiness. And sometimes, the greatest betrayals lead you to the most unexpected and beautiful new beginnings.